Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Stay-at-Home Bookkeeper Podcast, where it's real talk, where we actually have honest conversations about the good, the bad, and the real side of building a business. And I'm here with my business partner and spouse, Bill Rogers. How are you today, Bill?
Good afternoon. Excited for today's podcast.
All right, well, we have an exciting guest today, Beejel Parmar. Bijal, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me onto the podcast.
We are so excited. So let's kick things off there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you and your business does, and then Bill and I will kind of dive in and ask some questions.
Sure. At a very simplistic level, Deanna, a lot of entrepreneurs they start businesses and they really kind of get bogged down with what I call the storm of entrepreneurship. Now, what I mean by storm is they're stretched beyond their time, their knowledge, their capacity. They're trapped by tedious work. They're overwhelmed by waves of busy work. They resist doing some of the things that they're advised to do, and they're kind of multitasking their brains to fatigue. So this is a very real reality of being an entrepreneur. So where we come in is we help them identify a what we call a remote worker, a virtual assistant, also known as a human in the loop. So somebody overseas that can help them with the admin level activities of pretty much any business, but it really applies to the solopreneur, micropreneur category because we often think that we don't have the budgets to hire full time. So we need to kind of leverage the global workforce. We need to leverage talented people overseas who can do some of that work for us.
So, in particular, to the people that are listening here, because a lot of people listening here are either bookkeepers, CPAs, maybe small business owners. This is ideal for them because a lot of bookkeepers and CPAs have a lot of just consistent work that has to be done over. It's repetitive work, right? That bogs them down, like you said. And it actually makes the business not as much fun anymore and harder to scale. So, and a lot of times we keep thinking that we have to do it all and yet we don't. And we have this fear of letting go. It's really hard. We all do it. Every one of us, even if you're listening and you're like, I don't. Yes, you do. We've all been there. We've all had the fear of letting go. But that's exactly what you help entrepreneurs do, right?
Yeah, we call it thinking about your business, and we have a mechanism called ROI, right? So
Mm.
ROI is we always make a return on our investment in whatever we're investing in. But in delegation terms, the R stands for how do we delegate things so we can reclaim time from that busy work. The O stands for overcoming task avoidance, and the I is how do we increase number of leads or increase sales conversion. So when we think of delegation, I like to compartmentalize in these three areas. Reclaim time from busy work. That's things that we are doing that's just not the highest and best use of our time. Another way to think of it, what $5 to $10 per hour activities are we doing in our working day? Because if we're doing them, that means we're technically, well, not technically, we're paying ourselves or valuing ourselves at that $5 to $10 per hour category, and yet we have ambitions to build these, six, seven, eight-figure businesses, and yet we spend a lot of our time doing that low-value work. O is overcoming that task avoidance. There's things we know we have to do, and yet we don't want to do it, and that stuff could be costing us literally tens of thousands of dollars. And lastly, I think for a lot of small businesses, that daily rhythm of how do we increase the number of leads, how do we increase the number of sales conversations. So I kind of almost like take a piece of paper and draw three columns ROI and just kind of empty my brain out as a starting point of what we can delegate.
Okay, so I'm writing this down. So you had reclaim time and then overcoming task. And the I was
Task
increasing
avoidance, yeah,
lead
overcoming task avoidance. So all the things that
avoidance.
we are told what to do, we go to seminars, we read books, people listening on this podcast, and hey, you should do this and you should do that, and then they go back to their not the normal life and then don't do it. And the last one is how do we increase leads and sales? That can also include kind of like your brand proposition, social media, getting content out there on the different channels, right? So lots of times people will come across your business and then they're going to go check you out, and they're going to check you out on different platforms, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever it may be, right? And there's no presence. it reduces your credibility to that potential customer that you might be looking for.
That's amazing. All right, Bill, you have any questions here? This is great. And
No, I
y'all, I'm
love this.
taking notes.
And I was looking through, several things that you had online, and I love how you speak towards this concept of, delegate or drowned. A lot of our, bookkeepers are in this world that they're at this pivot point in their business that they've reached the max capacity at what they can do, and they've now become the biggest obstacle to grow their business. And I'd love to get your input on, you've got, most of our students have come from a world where they've built this from scratch. They didn't come from a large corporate world, or a world where they had 100 people working up underneath them, and so they're very hesitant to spend the money on increased help, and they're hard for them to realize that they're the biggest obstacle to growth. How do you explain to potential clients this, how you can gain that time back, that task avoidance, with the benefit of bringing in help, and people that are hesitant about hiring personnel, especially in bookkeeping, with people who are not necessarily US based.
Yeah. So let's look at it from two perspectives, right? So one is the business activities, and one is the bookkeeping itself. We've placed many bookkeepers with actual bookkeeping companies. Not many, but now and then we'll get approached by a bookkeeping company or an accounting company and say, "Hey, can you help us find a actual bookkeeper?" So many of the bookkeeping principles, they're kind of universal, and some countries have literally the same bookkeeping and accounting methodologies. So you can find the actual skilled talent for growing the business. Then there's the business side of it, the admin, the billing, the invoicing, the lead generation. So when you're thinking about delegation, we can think of these two areas. How can I grow my bookkeeping team if that's something that's of necessity? Or how do I just kind of delegate this busy stuff so I can do more of what I'm good at as a bookkeeper? So
Yep.
think of it from these two areas, right? Now let's start with the second part of this question. I've been doing this since 2009. So there is not a single type of business that I've not come across. I think I've had over 3,000 conversations, probably more, spoken on stage in 8 different countries. Every single entrepreneur can do this. And it can be as simple as an hour to 2 hours per day, right? Which is basically I call it the Starbucks effect, right? If we can afford a Starbucks a day, right? And sometimes that's questionable, right? For a cup of coffee. But let's call it Starbucks, right? Which is $6, $7, $8 for a Starbucks, right? Can we, at the very bare minimum, think of one or two things that if somebody on our team was doing it every single day would move the needle? We don't need to delegate 25 different things. We need to start thinking, okay, what's that one thing that I'm not doing that if I just did it daily would move the needle in my business? Here's an example, LinkedIn, right? The biggest professional network on the planet, and yet most professionals, entrepreneurs do not use LinkedIn correctly. Could I have a VA helping me with putting some content, engaging with people in my area that could become potential clients, right? You can make literally a list of businesses in your kind of geographical area on LinkedIn and just engaging their posts every single day. Have a VA come in, engage with their posts. There's AI tools that can assist with that. What if that was the only thing you did with, say, a 5, 6, 7 hour per day budget? Just did that one thing. Could it move the needle in the business? If people are checking you out on social media, you're not present, how much money could you be losing? What if you just had a VA, again, 1 or 2 hours per day, just taking some content, putting it out there for you every single day? And then we can layer upon the delegation. So a lot of people get confused because they think that, oh my God, what am I going to delegate? Start with just a few things, delegate it well. Once it's working, layer on the next thing, the next thing, and next thing. So you don't need to start with a full-time person. And in fact, almost discourage it because you want to build up that muscle of delegation, not just offload our 200, to-do items onto a stranger that needs to learn about you and your business needs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question that a lot of people are probably asking is can I afford And you're saying, honestly, if I can afford a Starbucks coffee, I can afford to do this. And then I think the other question you have to ask yourself, how can you not afford to do this, right?
There's three costs, right? And I'm speaking from my personal experience of several years. This is going about the year 2000 to 2009. I didn't know this. I didn't understand this. This is kind of before everybody was talking about VAs. And I would start a business, and then I'd find myself, I don't want to do that. I'll start a new business, and that cycle kept repeating itself. I'd get excited about something. Oh, this is really good, and then I'd find myself growing out of love with that thing. I start a new thing. It wasn't until 2009, and I picked up this book called The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And
Yep.
in that book, you talked about what's your genius zone? What is it that you love doing that, even if no one's paying you, that you just do it, okay? But then he talked about delegation and he talked about leveraging the global workforce. And back then, the number that was kind of often mentioned was $5 per hour, right? So I was like, my kind of light bulb went off at that moment. I was like, oh my God, this is why I kept sabotaging my own efforts because I'm a creative. I love to build stuff. I love to start something, but I'm not very good at that day-to-day administration. It's probably costed me millions, Deanna and Bill, not understanding this. So think about this. We are potentially sabotaging the very thing that could change our lives, the business, right? By not understanding this. So you talk about daily cost, well, the cost of hiring a VA. But here's the thing, it's costing us money because we're probably losing money by not
Yep.
delegating. It's
Right.
costing us time, which could also mean time with family, time for our health, time for doing what we're really good at doing, time for vacation, right? So there's a cost of time there. And to me, the biggest thing is when we are doing things that we do not enjoy, what's the mental cost? Cost of doing stuff, or multitasking our way through the day by doing things that just bring us no joy, right? It literally can be suck. It can suck the passion out of the business. That to me, I think, maybe the biggest unspoken cost by trying to do everything ourselves.
Especially if someone who's not familiar with working with VAs or actually, a lot of our bookkeepers have, they're new to being business owners, so haven't had a team underneath them. What are the good traits? What are you looking for take out bookkeeping, just,
Okay,
first solid VA. What are
this
the
is a
three traits you're looking for?
this is a great conversation because we ourselves are always looking to optimize our hiring, okay? And the first thing is every resume is going to look amazing because they're all pretty much written by AI these days. So do
Yep.
not go based on resume. You kind of got to go back to basic principles of hiring. Think about time when you were interviewed for a position, right? Because this person, you got to put aside the fact they're only $5 or $6 per hour when you're hiring, because the value they can bring is in the hundreds of dollars per hour. Because every VA becomes an AI operator, in my opinion, in this day and age. Okay, think of a VA as the human in the loop, the human that's going to operate your AI tools that can transform your business. So when you're hiring a VA, don't just think about the skills. Think about the ethics. Think about your personality. Think about their personality. Think about comprehension. So we have like almost like a 16-step process. We do English comprehension tests. We do skills testing. Now I know this is kind of a little bit overwhelming for people when they hear this, but we're hiring somebody to be part of our team. We got to approach it professionally, right? The same way that when somebody
Well,
is getting
I was just gonna say, sorry. I think the key is you're hiring someone to be a part of their team, which reflects on them. So we would want you to do all those things, right?
exactly, yeah, I'm just saying it from when people do it themselves, they got to approach it from a professional perspective, not just, oh, let me like go to a website and put a post and hire
Yeah.
the first person that comes along, because everybody's got an emotional story. Every VA I've ever spoken to, they're supporting their kids, their parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents, whatever. So a lot of people hire emotionally, they don't hire logically, and they don't put in the time. People take years to make a decision to hire, and then when they do, they want to hire like tomorrow, right? So they usually end up hiring the wrong person based on the resume. It looks great. Oh my God, the resume looks brilliant. But that's completely the wrong way to hire. So you've got to approach it professionally. Again, when we do it, we have a very rigorous process. A lot of people will actually recommend VAs to us that they've worked with in the past. I'll tell you right now, probably about 95% of people who get recommended to us do not pass our personal litmus test. We reject a lot of people because we're looking for very specific character traits and skill traits because we're the ones responsible for placing them with our clients.
So one of the things that I notice that I know even when Bill and I have been we've gone into businesses and we start, and we notice that we can become the bottleneck. And I even know this with one of my other companies that I had with Roland over the last 14 years is I became the bottleneck versus handing things off to either team members or VAs. So, what are some potential signs that you're seeing from business owners where they are the bottleneck where they should be leaning towards having the VA help them more? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, so when we first hire a team member, it's gonna sometimes feel like there's more work by hiring somebody than less work because now we're not just doing the things that we should be doing, we're teaching somebody or guiding somebody to do things that we want done.
Yep.
And so, the first 30 to 90 days can feel actually like more work, right? But you got to keep your eye on the end of the tunnel. You've got to look at the long term. Don't look at the 30-day and 60-day or even 90-day. Think a year out. Like where we are right now, everything from an operational perspective in the business is done by other team members, but it took time to guide them, right? So the key thing here is patience and feedback and meeting and communication. There's nothing I'm saying that's new. These are all fundamental business traits. But unfortunately, we ourselves miss out on these. Like, here's a few things. What's the culture of your business? Now, what I mean by culture is like, well, I'm just a business of one. Do I even have a culture? Well, yeah, because you technically represent the culture, right? So you're
Right.
inviting somebody into your culture. They need to know you. They need to understand your personality. A lot of times people say, oh, it's not working out for me. I say, well, can you show me the instructions? And they provided little to no guidance for their team members, right? So we've got to go back to business, fundamental business principles. It's the same thing that you guys use in your business. When we had a conversation, a few weeks ago, you have SOPs, you have systems, you have
Yep.
Emily, right? So you got these things in place. Now, I'm not talking like complicated flow diagrams. I'm talking about simple checklists. Hey, this is how you would onboard a client. Checklist. Five, six, seven items on the checklist. That becomes your first basic system that you can give to a team member. Hey, every time we have a new client, a new bookkeeping client, here are the 10 things that we must do for that client. We send out a thank you card. We add them to the community, group. We send out this, we send out that, we get etc. So, think of how you do things, document it the best you can, and give your team members permission to help improve that over time.
So, what are some good KPIs, key performance indicators that a business owner, specifically a bookkeeping business owner, would use to really hold their VAs accountable or manage productivity or things like that? It's hard when you're remote and in a very different time zone, things like that.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the role you're hiring them for. But let's say it's something that you've been doing and that you now want somebody to help you with. So you should have an idea of how long it takes you to do something, right? Let's say there's a particular activity that you do or task you do. Let's call it example, creating say a video, a short form video. Let's say it takes you normally 30 minutes to do it, right? And now you hire somebody to do it for you, right? So their KPI is going to be 30 minutes. Can they do it in 30 minutes or less? If it's taking them, say, 40 minutes, why is it taking them longer? Is it because they don't what is it they don't know about the process that you knew? But sometimes you'll find that they can actually optimize the process and do it even in less time because they don't come with the same distraction focus that we're dealing with. So that's part one, is like, if we're doing it, we know what the KPI should be. Or if we're not doing it, we can either just, often go to ChatGPT and say, hey, what's a good KPI for this activity in my business? And ChatGPT will give you some recommendations. That becomes your starting point. Let's say, if it takes me X minutes to do Y activity and Chat gave me a different answer, I can then look at, okay, well, what's different here? Is it the system that's not optimized, or is it my VA? So let me speak to systems for a second. Most people, when they hire a VA, they're thinking of task-based delegation. They wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, what do I need to give my VA today? I've got them for 2 hours per day. What do I need to give them?" That's not my recommendation. What I recommend is think about the systems that run your business or should run your business. There can be a lead gen system, a sales support system, a follow-up system, a client onboarding system, etc. And think about assigning then for, let me back up for a second. In any business, there are constraints and challenges. There are constraints which are holding our business back, and there are objectives that we are working towards. For every constraint or challenge, there is some system or process that's going to help overcome the challenge or help us move towards the goal. Then we can build a system. We can either improve a system that we already have, or we can build a system that will allow us to move closer to that goal. The final piece of that is the system operator, aka VA. Now, the more systems we can delegate over time, the freer we're going to become from the busyness of the system. Why? Because the system does the guidance, the system does the measuring, and the system KPIs will tell you that the system is not working. Then you can look at, is it the system failure or a human failure? Now, that's something that it takes a little bit of time to wrap your head around, but that's where we want to get to as business owners. We want to become where the systems are running the business and the humans, our VAs in this case, are just operating the systems, and they report to us if the system is doing the job or not.
You talk a lot about AI enabled VAs. What does that, in a world where bookkeepers and VAs, people are always fearful of AI replacing them, what does that actually change inside a business, an AI enabled VA?
Yeah, so when I hire VAs, I'm not hiring based on AI expertise. I think it's kind of foolish when people say I'm an AI expert because it's like, well, you were not an AI expert last week. You became an AI expert over the weekend, right? So when I look at, I want to look at a competency that can this person on my team use this new AI tool that I want to introduce to my company. Now that's kind of just an AI tool. Now we have AI agents. Now AI agents are a little bit different. They actually do things within the company. It could be checking our emails. They can be, creating content. But somebody needs to sit over that. Somebody needs to be the bridge between all those tools running in the background or running on the systems, whatever, and us. I don't want to be the one having to log in and out of all these different platforms and tools and technologies as part of my job. I want somebody else to do that. So I look at AI, I like the word AI operator. They're the ones who operate these AI tools. They may not, when they join my team, they may not know all these tools, but I'd rather have them go learn it than me have to learn yet another tool. I mean, this day and age, by the time we finish this podcast, there'll be a brand new tool that somebody out there has just launched that's going to be the newest and fanciest and greatest tool. And yet now we feel overwhelmed because we feel further behind because we don't know this tool. And then, it kind of drives us down this kind of spiral of darkness and that despair because we're falling behind. The good thing about this day and age is with 24 to 48 hours worth of just focusing on one or two things, we can get pretty caught up when it comes to technology. But the fundamentals is this: we are not business doers. We are not meant to be the AI operators. We are meant to be running businesses, managing businesses, leading businesses. And when we can keep our eye on that and think about if that's my role as the owner of this business, what should I not be doing on a day-to-day basis? What's costing me time, effort, resources, money, and sanity because I'm choosing to do that low-level work that's needed, but doesn't have to be me.
I think about this even in any type of business, not just for bookkeeping, because Bill and I also own auto shops, right? And if, of course, Bill and I don't turn wrenches ourselves. We don't even know how to open the hood of our car, right? But we have to think higher level and we have to delegate everything else. If we were in the business turning those wrenches, we would never be able to grow and scale the businesses that we have. And I think in taking this and applying it to bookkeeping businesses, I think bookkeepers and CPAs fall into that trap a lot, thinking that they have to do all the work themselves. And they don't. The thing is that you started as a solopreneur, you started and you built it and you grew these relationships and built this business. But at some point, in order to keep scaling, you have to let go and start delegating and building teams underneath you and not just turning those wrenches by yourself, right? Doing the books all by yourself. You have to start outsourcing and there's just if you ever want to scale, if you ever want to sell, which is what Bill and I talk about all the time too, is scaling and selling at some point, you just can't simply doing it all by yourself. Um, so I guess I'm going to go back to like to the person that's afraid to doing that. What tools are you using or are you encouraging people to use when they have a VA? Like communication tools. Is it really simple? Is it like Slack, WhatsApp? Like what is it?
It's the tool that you're going to use the most. So in my case, I'm a WhatsApp guy, right? So my team
Okay.
uses WhatsApp. Some people they love Slack. They have their teams use Slack. So whatever works for you. You
So it's
remember,
not hard, is what you're saying.
it's not like I would say, between WhatsApp and Google Documents, it's pretty much my go-to tools. The team use like things like Asana and stuff, but again, I'm lazy. I don't like logging in and out of different platforms and having multiple tabs open, right? So I try and keep things really simple for myself in terms of what is it I'm more likely to use. If that's WhatsApp, have your team use WhatsApp. The only thing that they can if you set up a phone number for them, but they can't really text you unless they have a US based number that you can get for them. But with so many online tools like WhatsApp and Telegram and Slack, and there's no need to make it difficult for
Yeah.
them.
I mean, I use WhatsApp and I've used WhatsApp for my VA forever when we were doing it, and it was fantastic. Every single morning, we were texting back and forth what the to-dos were for the day, and it was fantastic. Had a great
I'll
experience.
give you a tip. Here's something that so my team, my VAs have permission to hold me accountable. This is a game changer if you do this right. So a lot of times, because we're the ones giving tasks to our VAs, I had a kind of a epiphany maybe a few years ago where what if I allow my team to manage me better, right? In terms of what we do at the end of each week, we have a team meeting. We call it Think Time. It's based on there's a book called The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. And in that book, he talks about this thing called a think time. The book's about all the stupid thing entrepreneurs do to sabotage their business, right? But in there, he says, okay, every week have a think time meeting. You bring your team together and you ask a few questions. Hey, what did we do well this week? What could you have done better this week? But when it comes to me, I say this is what I did well. And then I ask my team, what could I have done better this week? And they have permission to tell me what they think I could have done better this week, right? And that creates kind of that little open conversation. Now, what they do on a daily basis, though, is on WhatsApp, you can create a poll, right? You can like what's your favorite color? Red, blue, green, whatever. But I use that poll feature in WhatsApp, and every day my team will put a poll in there of things that I have to do to move the business forward. And as I do them, I check them off, right? So here's why it works, and here's why it doesn't work with AI. AI doesn't give a shit if you don't do them. Sorry, pardon the expression, okay? But imagine that I am hiring somebody at five, six, $7 per hour. I'm telling them this is their role and responsibilities. But I, as a business owner, am not showing up and doing my things. That's the kind of little psychological thing that works because I now have to make sure that they see that I'm doing the things that I'm meant to do to support the business as well. So that's a little WhatsApp hack. I don't know. It may exist in Slack and whatever, but my EA does it for me in WhatsApp.
I love that. That's so
Love that.
fantastic. That's great. Bill, any other questions? Because I want to be respectful of time, but man, this is great. What I heard you say though is don't overthink it. Just, use whatever resources you currently have and just get started, right?
Yeah. If I could leave with this, okay?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Not delegating is already costing you time, effort, resources, money, and sanity. It's not going to cost you. It's costing you right now by not. Number two, to sit down, take a sheet of paper, go to Starbucks, get a $7 cup of coffee, look at it, and realize that for this cup of coffee, I could buy an hour of time of an assistant that can help me. Then do your ROI exercise. Get a piece of paper, 3 columns, reclaim time from busy work, overcome task avoidance, increase, and just empty your brain out. Just empty everything that you want to delegate out in a wish list. Then from that list, decide what two, three, four things could you start with? even a 2 hour per day budget, right? That's going to be costing you around $10 to $20 per day, right? And pick the things that you think could be the biggest game changer and needle movers in the business. Don't think about delegating 20, 30, 40 different things. Just pick a few things that if somebody was doing it, is going to change the game for you and hopefully increase the revenue for you.
So as you were saying that, it made me think because a lot of the times we have business owners that'll say, nobody can do it as well as I can. But what would you say to the person that's saying that? Because that happens a lot and we all do it. If you're listening and you say you don't, you know you do.
No, look, if you enjoy doing low value work that's costing you money, continue doing it.
Oh, I almost think
I
that's a
love
mic
it.
drop right there.
You know, if that's if you get off doing that kind of work, it's okay, but it's going to cost you time. It's costing you money, and even if you are the best in the world at doing that thing, right? If it's not growing your business, then and you could do something better with that time, right? If you're doing again, you're doing $10 per hour activities, sacrificing $100 per hour worth of potential. That's the reality.
No, you ended that on a very high note. Exactly where our members and our team need to be thanking. If someone wanted to reach out to you and work with you, what's some of the best ways for them to reach out and work with you?
Yeah, I think the best way is to come to our website. There's a very short little video that kind of goes over how we're different because we're not an agency. We actually call ourselves the unagency. Our clients actually pay their talent directly. We're guides in the process. We call it the SAGE, support, advice, guidance, and education that entrepreneurs need and even VAs need to work better together. But if they go to Be Epic Outsourcing is right there, they can
There you
learn
go.
all about us and contact us if we are the right fit for them.
That is awesome. Well, we're gonna drop your information in the show notes as well, because if anyone on here today is listening and is thinking, you know what, for that cup of coffee, I should be delegating this to somebody else, correct? Like they need to be reaching out to you today, having that conversation and really focusing on scaling their business, right? And
Yeah.
not taking off the things that don't matter and let them focus on what does matter. So
Yep.
we're going
Yeah.
to drop your information in the show notes as well so that everybody can reach out to you, Bijal. Thank you so much for
Thank you. Thank you.
today.
Thanks for having me and kind of sharing some of my experience with you.
Oh, we're so excited. This was fantastic. So thank you so much. So everyone, thank you again for joining us this week on our Stay-at-Home Bookkeeper podcast. Remember, however you watch us, listen, share with others if you loved what you heard today. And again, we will drop in the show notes how to reach out to Bijal and his company. And we want to recommend that you just do a call with him. Definitely find out if his services and having a VA could make your business even smarter, less work, and allow you to grow and scale it the way that you need it to be done. So, thank you to everyone. And until we see you next week on our next show, thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye now.